You've just moved to a new city, starting fresh with a new job or school. The excitement is real, but so is the challenge of finding a place to live. And when you finally settle in with a new roommate, the last thing you expect is for everything to change, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. But what happens when desire sneaks up on you, completely uninvited? In today's video, we're diving into a story that explores what happens when the lines between friendship and attraction blur. You'll meet Emma, a young woman who thinks she's just found a place to crash with a seemingly ordinary roommate, Leo. But as their time together stretches on, something shifts. Will Emma's curiosity get the better of her? And more importantly, can she trust these new feelings she's starting to develop? As we go through Emma's story, you'll see how small, seemingly insignificant moments can turn into something much more powerful. From casual conversations to accidental touches, this is a story about how relationships evolve in the most unexpected ways. You'll also uncover some surprising twists and hidden emotions that neither Emma nor Leo were prepared for. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be wondering what will happen next, so don't blink, because the drama is just beginning. Welcome to our channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Keep watching, and let's see where this story goes. As the days passed, Emma and Leo began to settle into a comfortable routine. They'd exchange casual greetings in the hallway, share a quick laugh over the most trivial of things, and talk about their days over dinner. The apartment felt like home, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more between them. She tried to ignore it at first, but the little things Leo did kept pulling her attention back to him. It wasn't anything obvious, but she started noticing the way Leo always remembered the little things she mentioned, like how she liked her coffee extra strong or how she hated watching horror movies late at night. It wasn't much, but there was something in the way he listened to her, something that made her heart flutter, even if she refused to admit it. They would talk after dinner about everything: work, friends, their pasts, and though there was no romantic tension yet, there was a growing sense of comfort in their conversations. Still, Emma couldn't help but wonder if Leo felt the same way. She had convinced herself that she was overthinking things, that there was no way he saw her the way she saw him. But every time their eyes met, there was an undeniable spark, just a flicker, but enough to make her wonder if she was imagining it. Emma wasn't looking for anything serious, at least not right now. She had just gotten out of a long relationship and wasn't ready to dive into something new, especially not with a roommate. But despite her best efforts to ignore it, the chemistry between them felt impossible to ignore. The tension was subtle, just enough to make her wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was something more to this than friendship. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at work, Emma sat down on the couch, rubbing her temples in an attempt to ease the headache that had been nagging her all afternoon. Leo, noticing her discomfort, offered her a glass of water and sat down beside her. It was a simple gesture, but somehow it made her feel less alone, as though his presence made the weight of the world feel a little lighter. They sat there in silence for a few moments, the air between them calm but charged with an unspoken tension. Leo was the first to break it, making a casual remark about the weather, something they had talked about a dozen times before. But today, it felt different. There was a certain softness in his tone, something that made Emma look up at him for a moment longer than usual. His smile, though small, seemed to linger a little longer. It wasn't the kind of smile that made her feel uncomfortable, but rather one that made her feel seen, really seen. She quickly turned her attention back to the TV, trying to shake the growing sense of unease. Was she reading too much into this? Was this what it felt like when someone was simply kind, or was there something more beneath the surface? Later, as they cleaned up after dinner, their hands brushed accidentally as they both reached for the same dish. Emma froze, her pulse quickening at the brief contact. It was nothing, just a quick touch, but for a split second, it felt as if the world around them had paused. She glanced up at Leo, who seemed equally startled by the moment. He quickly withdrew his hand, his expression unreadable, but there was a flicker in his eyes that made Emma wonder if he felt the same way she did. She tried to laugh it off, but the silence that followed was heavier than usual. The unspoken words hung in the air between them, like a secret neither was ready to acknowledge. Emma couldn't tell if it was just her overactive imagination or if Leo, too, had felt that spark. But one thing was certain, something was changing. The more she tried to ignore it, the more the tension between them seemed to grow, and Emma found herself caught in a whirlwind of confusion and curiosity. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the thoughts racing through her mind. Leo had always been polite, even kind, but tonight felt different. The touch, the look in his eyes, it all lingered, refusing to fade away. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she wondered if she was beginning to feel something for him that went beyond friendship. Could she really be thinking about her roommate in this way? She wasn't sure, but she couldn't deny the growing attraction that was starting to take root. It was a quiet night, one of those rare moments when neither Emma nor Leo had anything pressing to do. The evening stretched out before them, with the city lights casting a soft glow through the windows. Leo had just finished a late meeting for work, and Emma had spent the evening catching up on some reading. They both ended up in the living room, a bottle of wine between them, trying to relax after their long days. The conversation started light. They talked about the books Emma had been reading, about the new movie Leo had seen with some friends. But as the wine flowed and the conversation deepened, something shifted between them. Leo opened up about his childhood, about the pressures he'd faced growing up, and Emma found herself listening more intently than she ever had before. There was something about his vulnerability that made her heart ache, something she hadn't expected to find in someone she'd thought of as just a roommate. She told him about her past too, about her ex and the heartbreak she'd gone through. It felt cathartic to speak openly about things she hadn't thought about in a long time. The more they talked, the more Emma realized how little she really knew about Leo. He had always been the quiet, polite roommate, the one who kept to himself. But now, in the dim light of the living room, Emma saw him in a completely different light. He wasn't just a roommate anymore. He was a person, with dreams, fears, and a past that had shaped him into the man sitting across from her. At some point, the distance between them began to close. Leo moved slightly closer, his body language open but still cautious. Emma could feel the heat of his presence next to her, the quiet tension building between them. They laughed, talked about silly things, but there was an undercurrent of something else, something more charged. It was when Leo reached for the glass of wine that their hands brushed again, this time lingering for just a moment longer than necessary. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The touch was innocent enough, but it felt like a spark, small, subtle, but undeniable. She looked up at Leo, her heart racing in her chest. He didn't pull his hand away immediately this time. His fingers brushed against hers once more, and when his eyes met hers, something in them shifted. It was as if they were both aware of the space between them, aware of the growing tension that neither of them knew how to navigate. For a moment, Emma thought she saw something in Leo's eyes, something that mirrored her own confusion, her own hesitation. He wasn't just a roommate anymore. The air between them was thick with unspoken desire, and neither of them seemed willing to break the silence, not yet. They both sat there, hearts pounding, unsure of what to do next. Finally, Leo cleared his throat and pulled his hand back, but the damage had been done. The room felt charged, the once comfortable space between them now laden with something more. Neither of them said anything more, but Emma's mind was spinning. Was this just a fleeting moment? Or had they crossed a line that could never be uncrossed? As the night wore on, they both stayed on opposite sides of the couch, a quiet distance between them, but the space felt different now, more charged, more uncertain. Emma couldn't stop thinking about that moment, the touch, the way Leo had looked at her. She tried to tell herself it meant nothing, that it was just a friendly accident, but deep down, she knew better. Something was shifting between them, and Emma wasn't sure if she was ready to face it. The next few days felt like a blur to Emma. The simple routines they once had now seemed laden with an unspoken tension. Every glance she caught from Leo, every accidental touch, left her wondering if he was feeling the same pull she was. She tried to bury it, tried to keep the line between them clear, but it was becoming harder to ignore. It was a Friday night when it finally happened. They had both come home late, both tired from long days. Emma had planned to spend the evening alone, unwinding with a book, but Leo had suggested they grab a drink. His voice, casual but inviting, left her with little excuse to decline. She agreed, not knowing that one simple decision would change everything. They sat at the small kitchen table, sipping wine as they swapped stories about their week. The easy conversation flowed like it always did, but tonight, there was an undeniable change in the air. Emma could feel it, a charged undercurrent that made her acutely aware of every little thing. The way Leo's hand lingered on the bottle as he poured her drink, the way his eyes caught hers a little too often, as if searching for something in her gaze. At some point, the conversation tapered off, and the room fell into a brief, comfortable silence. The hum of the city outside was the only sound that filled the space between them. Emma shifted in her chair, suddenly aware of how close they were. The dim lighting, the soft music playing in the background, it all seemed to set the stage for something that neither of them was prepared for. Leo looked at her, his expression unreadable, before breaking the silence. "I've been thinking about what happened the other night," he said quietly, his voice rougher than usual. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She knew exactly what he meant, the touch, the way everything had changed in that brief moment. She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping her wine glass a little too tightly. She hadn't expected him to bring it up so directly. It was like he had somehow read her mind, confirming all the thoughts she had tried so hard to push away. I don't know what to make of it," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't. It's not the same anymore, Leo." Leo leaned back in his chair, eyes locking with hers. There was something about the way he looked at her now, something more intense than before. "I feel it too," he said, his words heavy with meaning. "I've been trying to fight it, but every time I'm around you, it's hard not to wonder if we're meant to be just roommates." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had always thought of Leo as just a roommate, a nice, slightly distant guy who happened to share the same apartment. But now, with the weight of his words hanging between them, she realized just how much more complicated things had become. "I never thought I'd be in this situation," she confessed, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "You were just supposed to be a roommate, Leo. I wasn't looking for this." Leo's gaze softened, a mixture of understanding and something deeper lurking in his eyes. He shifted closer, just a little, and the space between them felt even smaller than before. His presence was magnetic, and Emma found herself drawn to him, pulled in despite her best intentions. "I wasn't looking for it either," he admitted quietly. "But now that it's here, I can't ignore it. I don't want to." The words hung in the air, charged with the raw honesty of the moment. Emma's heart raced, her body responding to the closeness, the warmth of his presence. She knew what she felt, but fear gnawed at her, the fear of crossing a line that couldn't be undone, the fear of ruining the one relationship that had become a comforting constant in her life. She wanted to pull away, to tell herself that it was too soon, that they were rushing into something they wouldn't be able to handle. But the words never came. Instead, she found herself leaning forward, her breath shallow, her pulse quickening as Leo's face inched closer to hers. The air between them felt electric, charged with the anticipation of what was about to happen. Then, without warning, Leo closed the space between them. His lips brushed against hers, tentative at first, as if asking for permission. Emma's breath hitched, her heart pounding in her chest as she kissed him back. The moment was everything she had been trying to avoid, yet it felt completely natural. It was a kiss that told them both everything they had been too afraid to say. The kiss deepened, and for a moment, nothing else in the world seemed to matter. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless, caught in the aftermath of what they had just shared. Emma stared at Leo, her mind swirling with a mixture of emotions, confusion, excitement, fear. She couldn't tell where they went from here, but one thing was certain, nothing between them would ever be the same again. As they sat there, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The kiss had said it all. The boundaries they had once shared, the distance between them, had been erased in that single moment. And now, they were left to figure out what came next. The days following that night were a blur of conflicting emotions for Emma. The kiss had left her reeling, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. Was it a mistake, or was it the beginning of something real, something deeper than either of them had anticipated? The uncertainty gnawed at her, keeping her awake at night, her thoughts swirling in circles. Leo, on the other hand, seemed just as conflicted. The atmosphere between them had shifted, but it wasn't the same as before. There was an unspoken tension that neither of them knew how to navigate. They were no longer just roommates, but neither of them seemed ready to define what this new dynamic meant. For the first time, Emma found herself avoiding him, Not because she didn't want to be around him, but because being around him made her feel exposed. Every glance, every word felt heavier, loaded with a question neither of them was ready to ask. They had crossed a line, and now they were standing at the edge of something unknown, unsure of how to move forward. Leo had tried to act normal, tried to pretend like everything was fine, but the discomfort between them was palpable. He would offer her a quiet smile when their paths crossed, but it felt forced, as if they were both trying to act like nothing had changed, even though everything had. It wasn't until one late evening, when the apartment was silent and both of them were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, that the tension finally reached its breaking point. Emma had just finished her dinner, her book lying forgotten on the coffee table. Leo had been on his phone, but now, he put it down, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart skip. "I can't keep doing this," Leo said, his voice quiet but firm. "I can't keep pretending like nothing happened. I know you feel it too, Emma." Emma's heart raced as she looked at him, unable to form a coherent thought. She had hoped this moment wouldn't come, that they could somehow avoid addressing what had happened, but here it was, unavoidable and undeniable. "I don't know what I'm feeling," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what we're doing." Leo's gaze softened, a mix of understanding and something else in his eyes. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, as he tried to find the right words. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't mean to complicate things between us. But I can't ignore what's going on, what I feel when I'm around you." Emma swallowed, her throat tight with emotion. She had wanted to talk about it, had wanted to make sense of the whirlwind inside her, but hearing Leo's words made it all feel so much more real, so much more terrifying. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to lose what we have. You're my roommate, Leo. You've been the one person I could rely on since I got here. What if this ruins everything?" Leo's expression softened, and he reached out, his hand resting on the arm of the couch between them, just close enough for her to feel the warmth of his touch without it being too much. "I get it. I'm scared too. I don't want to lose what we have either. But I don't want to pretend like nothing happened. I care about you, Emma. More than I should." The words hit her like a wave, crashing over her and leaving her breathless. She had known that this was where they were heading, but hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. The tension between them, the attraction, the confusion, it was all spilling out in that moment, raw and vulnerable. "I care about you too," Emma whispered, the weight of her confession settling in her chest. "I just don't know what to do with it." Leo's hand stayed where it was, offering silent support, as if he was waiting for her to decide what came next. There was no rush, no pressure. They were both standing on the edge of something unknown, but neither of them was ready to jump yet. "I don't have all the answers," Leo said quietly. "But maybe we can figure it out together. No rush. We can take it slow, see where this goes. Just don't shut me out, okay?" Emma nodded slowly, the knot in her stomach easing just a little. There were no guarantees, no promises. But in that moment, she realized that whatever this was, it wasn't something to be afraid of. Maybe they could navigate the confusion, the tension, and the uncertainty together. As the evening stretched on, the silence between them no longer felt awkward. It was comfortable, reassuring. They weren't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in days, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, they could figure it out together. The days following their conversation felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Emma and Leo had decided to take things slowly, to explore whatever this new dynamic between them was, without rushing into anything. They still shared the same space, still followed the same routine, but now there was a subtle shift, a quiet acknowledgement that things were different. They were no longer just roommates, and yet they weren't sure what to call what was happening between them. Emma found herself looking at Leo in a new way. His smile seemed to carry more meaning, his gestures more thoughtful. He had started leaving little notes for her in unexpected places, a simple, "good morning," on the kitchen counter, a joke scribbled on a sticky note on her laptop. Small things, but they made her heart flutter every time. He was showing her, in his own way, that he cared. But even with these small moments of connection, the air between them was still thick with unspoken words. They hadn't kissed again, hadn't taken things any further. Part of Emma was relieved by this, she wasn't ready to rush into anything. But another part of her couldn't help but wonder when the next step would come. One afternoon, as Emma sat in the living room reading, Leo came in with a cup of coffee for her, just the way she liked it, with a splash of cream and no sugar. She looked up from her book, startled by the gesture. He smiled, that soft, familiar smile that had started to make her stomach flutter. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her the cup. She took it, her fingers brushing his for just a second. That small contact was enough to send a spark of electricity racing through her. It was like everything that had been building between them in silence suddenly surged forward, and Emma felt her heart race in anticipation. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice softer than usual. Leo lingered for a moment, standing a little too close. He wasn't saying anything, but his presence seemed to fill the room in a way that made Emma feel exposed, yet safe at the same time. She had spent so much time worrying about what this would mean, what it would mean for their friendship, for their living situation, but standing there, with him so close, all of that seemed irrelevant. All that mattered was the way he made her feel, the way he looked at her, as if she was the only person in the world that mattered to him. "Emma," Leo said suddenly, his voice low. "Can we talk?" Her heart skipped a beat, and she nodded, setting the coffee cup down on the table. The last time they'd had a serious conversation like this, it had ended with a kiss. She wasn't sure what to expect this time, but she felt the familiar pull of curiosity mixed with nervous anticipation. They sat down on the couch, a few feet apart at first, but the distance between them seemed to shrink with every passing second. Leo looked at her, his gaze intense but kind, like he was searching for the right words. "I know we said we'd take things slow," he began, his voice steady but unsure. "But I don't want to leave things unresolved anymore. I need to know where we stand, Emma. What this is. I care about you. I care about you in a way that I didn't expect." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had been thinking about this for days, trying to figure out what she wanted, what she needed. She had never expected to develop feelings for Leo, had never imagined that their simple, everyday interactions would lead to something so complicated, so beautiful. But now, sitting next to him, she realized that she couldn't ignore it anymore. "I care about you too," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I'm scared. I'm scared of messing things up. I'm scared of losing what we have." Leo reached out, his hand resting gently on her arm, offering her a sense of calm. "We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just need to be honest with each other. I don't want to rush you, Emma. I just need you to know that I'm here. And I want to be here, whether that's as a friend, as something more, whatever it is. I'm not going anywhere." His words were exactly what she needed to hear, and for the first time in days, Emma felt her nerves settle. She looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that she didn't want to push him away. She didn't want to be afraid of what could happen between them. "I don't know what comes next, Leo," she said softly, "but I don't want to walk away from this. I don't want to pretend like it's not real." Leo's eyes softened, a mixture of relief and tenderness in his gaze. Slowly, he reached for her hand, his fingers gently curling around hers. The touch was quiet, intimate, and it sent a rush of warmth through her. In that simple moment, everything felt clearer. They didn't have to know what the future held. All they had to do was take it one step at a time, together. "I'm glad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm glad we're not giving up on this." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with something she couldn't quite name. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace with the uncertainty. Whatever this was, whatever it could be, she was ready to face it, one step at a time, with Leo by her side. They sat there for a while, their fingers intertwined, the silence between them comfortable, filled with the promise of something more. Neither of them knew exactly what the future held, but for the first time, Emma felt ready to see where this journey would take them. Together. The days following their conversation were different. There was a new sense of ease between Emma and Leo, a quiet understanding that neither of them needed to speak aloud. They had found a rhythm, one that felt comfortable and natural, like two people who had learned to trust each other without needing to rush into defining what they were. Life in the apartment continued, but now there was a subtle change. The mornings felt brighter, the evenings warmer. Emma found herself looking forward to the simple moments, sharing a cup of coffee, laughing at the way Leo always forgot where he'd put his keys, or the way he would look at her in that quiet, meaningful way that made her heart skip a beat. It was nothing overt, no grand gestures, no declarations, but everything felt different, and that was enough. One evening, after a long week, they found themselves on the couch again, sitting side by side, but this time, it felt more natural. The silence wasn't awkward, it was comfortable, as if they had become a quiet part of each other's lives. Leo was reading something on his phone while Emma scrolled through a book, but every so often, they would glance at each other, their eyes meeting in a shared moment of unspoken connection. Emma had never imagined that her life would take this turn. She had moved to the city for independence, to rebuild her life after a painful breakup, not expecting to develop feelings for her roommate. But Leo had been patient, gentle, and unexpectedly present. He didn't rush her, didn't push for more than she was ready to give. And in turn, Emma had begun to let herself lean into this new dynamic, letting go of the fear, the uncertainty, and just allowing herself to feel. And then, one night, it happened. They had spent the evening making dinner together. Leo had burned the garlic bread, and Emma had tried, unsuccessfully, to salvage it. They had laughed about it, the playful teasing adding a layer of warmth to the evening. Afterward, they sat down to eat, their plates piled high with pasta. And talked about the little things, work, their favorite TV shows, the latest gossip from their group of friends. It was nothing extraordinary, just the simple, everyday moments that felt all the more significant now. As they finished their meal, Leo's hand brushed against Emma's as they reached for their glasses. It was the same simple touch they had shared countless times before, but tonight, it felt different. Emma paused, her heart skipping a beat as she looked at him. Leo's eyes met hers, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if the air between them had shifted once more, a new understanding forming without a single word. "I think we're ready," Leo said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice was soft but steady, as though he was finally confident in what he was saying. Emma swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't sure what he meant at first, but as she looked at him, it became clear. He was talking about them, about what they had been building together. The uncertainty, the fear, the hesitation, all of it had led them here. And now, they were standing at the edge of something new, something they had both been waiting for. "Ready for what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "For this," Leo replied, his gaze never leaving hers. "For us. I don't know what the future holds, but I want to find out with you." No more second guessing, no more fear. Emma's heart swelled at his words. There was no hesitation in his eyes, no doubt in his voice. And in that moment, Emma knew that she didn't need to be afraid anymore. The uncertainty had been replaced by something else, something real, something that was theirs. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she was ready to face it, as long as it was with him. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his, the warmth of his touch grounding her. "I'm ready too," she said, her voice steady with certainty. They sat there for a while, hand in hand, not needing to say anything more. The weight of their conversation, of everything that had led them to this moment, hung in the air between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was a quiet, comfortable understanding, one that only they shared. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The road ahead might be uncertain, but she wasn't afraid anymore. They had already crossed so many lines, faced so many challenges, and yet here they were, standing side by side, ready to take the next step together. And whatever that next step was, Emma knew it didn't matter. She had found something special, something worth holding on to. And that, more than anything, was enough. As Emma and Leo sat there, hand in hand, the world outside their little apartment seemed to fade away. The uncertainty that once clouded their connection had dissolved, leaving behind something stronger, a quiet understanding, a shared trust, and the willingness to face whatever came next together. There was no rush, no pressure. Just the promise of something real, something worth exploring, at their own pace. In the end, it wasn't the grand gestures or the dramatic moments that made their story meaningful. It was the quiet, everyday things, the small touches, the shared laughter, the way they made each other feel safe and understood. Together, they had found something worth cherishing, and no matter what the future held, they knew they were ready to face it, side by side. Thank you for joining us through Emma and Leo's journey. What do you think? Can two people really transition from roommates to something more, or is it too complicated to work? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Emma and Leo made the right choice? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. We've got plenty more exciting, emotional, and unforgettable journeys coming your way. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.